Okay, my first guest is the former Republican governor from Ohio who spoke on the first night of the Democratic National Convention this week and endorsed Joe Biden for president, our friend John Kasich. Governor, I know they say politics makes strange bedfellows. Did you ever think in your wildest dreams that you would be at a Democratic convention opening for Bernie Sanders?
It's probably a politician that you
well,
see on
it seems
TV
a little bit, kind of
you're
out of the
reading their body
ordinary, Bill.
language,
But,
facial
my whole
expressions,
career,
and
I've had
tones,
great relations
and
with
you're picking
people in
up
the
on
other
something
party. One of them
that just isn't quite right.
is a guy named
And
Ron
that
Dellums,
is
who
what
you might
your
recall.
audience will
He
do
was
to
a very
you
liberal
if you're trying to
Democrat.
fake it.
He was a congressman.
You
He
can
was
see
the
that
mayor
you're
of
being
Oakland.
yourself, or
And
if
he
you're
and I
comfortable
became
or
very,
confident.
very close. And,
So
I did
the
things
first
with,
golden
actually
rule
with
that I'm gonna
Ralph
give you
Nader on
is
corporate
be
welfare, with Tim
yourself.
Penny on balancing the
Now,
budgets.
that probably
So,
sounds
this
a bit
is not,
strange. You might be
even though
thinking,
it's,
well, who else am I gonna
I
be?
would have never kind
Well,
of
I've
imagined
worked with
this.
hundreds
It's
of
not
TV
that I'm
presenters who,
uncomfortable
when they're
seeing
off
people in the
screen,
other party as
friendly,
somebody that I can
warm,
work
and
with
relaxed.
and help in some
But
ways.
you put
But
a
speaking
camera
at a
in front of them
Democratic
and they
convention,
change.
obviously,
They lose all that warmth and
it's something
easygoing
out of the
feeling.
Yeah,
ordinary.
that's a lot bigger. It's a lot
Obviously,
bigger,
we're in
but
It's almost
yeah,
like
but I got to tell
they're
you, at the
talking to
time, with some of the
vicar,
things
or
I did
they're
with
back at
Dellums,
school
which
and they're
was to
talking
limit
to
the
the
production of the
headmaster.
B-2 bomber.
So,
I
what's
mean, I
happening
was
here?
actually in a meeting
Well,
with Republican
when somebody is
leadership, and a
holding
guy
you
there
back, it
accused
can be
me
a
of being a
defense
traitor.
mechanism.
I mean,
If we're
those were
nervous
big
or
things.
unsure of
I
the
mean,
situation,
that
we
was
can
big
put up a
time when
wall
you
or a
start
facade
taking on
to
major
protect the
weapon
vulnerable
systems, and
little
we
us
limited the
inside.
production of it.
It's
But
almost
this is
like
big
we're thinking,
time, to
if
be at the
criticism comes,
convention.
it's okay,
But
because
and when
it's
they
not
asked me
really
to
me,
do it,
it's
I
you.
had to search my conscience,
A
as you
good
would
TV
expect,
presenter
and I
doesn't do
thought
this.
about it, and I
They're
thought this is the
confident
right
and
thing to
brave
do.
enough to let us
And I
see the
hope
real
you kind of
person
felt as though
inside.
it was a
And in
classy
doing
talk, because
so,
I
people will
tried to
genuinely
talk
warm to
about
them.
what's
As a
important in our
general
country.
rule,
Yeah,
the
it was.
user
Got
works
good
well on
reviews, and it
camera
should
is a
have.
confident,
But I'm just saying, this is
enthusiastic, and
endorsing,
passionate one.
telling
And
people to
this
vote
is the only part
for
of
the
presenting
person
that
who
I
is
would
not in
ever
your
call a
party.
performance.
Let me ask you this a
Finding
little
that
bit
energy
tougher
and
question. Would you have done it if you were
enthusiasm
still in
even when
office?
you're not
Because
in
I
the
see a
mood.
lot of
You
Republicans
must be
doing
able to
this.
turn it
Colin
on.
Powell
But
spoke
it's
there, and
only
a
the
number of
energy
others,
and
Susan
enthusiasm
Molinari,
that you turn on. Everything
Meg
else
Whitman,
is just you being
all
yourself.
retired.
I think of
And you
it
don't
like
see it a
this.
lot from
Imagine
Republicans
you've just
in
returned
office.
home
In
from
fact,
the trip of a
Justin
lifetime.
Amish was
That's a
the
good question.
only
3 months
one.
question.
traveling the world,
Yeah.
seeing all the
But you
best
can
places
you can
and
remember
interesting
that I
cultures.
expanded
And
Medicaid,
now
right?
you're
It was
meeting
very
your best friend
controversial at the
to tell
time.
them
Yeah.
all about
I
your
was the only
adventures.
major
You'll be
Republican
happy to
governor
see
in the
them
country that
and
did that, and I was
enthusiastic to
heading
tell them about
into
all the great
to
stuff that
re-election.
you've seen.
And I went ahead
But you may
and
have
did
also
it,
seen
because
some
I thought it
unpleasant
was the right
things,
thing to do. And not
perhaps
only did
poverty
I
in certain
hide
areas.
from it, I went out and
You'd still
explained to
talk
people
with
why
that
I was
energy
doing
and
it.
conviction.
So,
It's still you on a
Bill,
good
life
day,
is so short.
but you'd be
It's just so
sensitive to the
short. And
situation.
when you feel really compelled and it's a matter of conscience, you got to do what you have to do. And
We start
but I
learning
can't
body
project
language
back. I
very
can
early
just
on.
give you an example of
From the
what
day
I
we're
did
born,
that
we
went
look
against the
into a
grain,
human face and we start to
and I'm
figure out
comfortable with
what
what
that
I've done.
smile
And let me
means.
tell you,
Now,
this
as we
I get
go
a lot
through
of heat
life,
for
we
this
become
too.
very good at it.
I get
How
praise
many
and heat
times
all
have
at the
you
same
ever
time,
thought
and I
to
knew it would
yourself,
come.
I
That's
don't
life.
believe a word
Yeah, and now
man
that you
says.
want people to
It's
go out,
probably a politician that you
especially
see
in
on TV
Ohio,
or something, but
which
the
is
point
close this year,
You're reading
very
their
close.
body language,
You
facial
want people to go out
expressions,
and pull the lever for
tones,
the
and
Democrat.
you're
Do you
picking
have
up
any
on something
regrets about
that
some
just
of the
isn't
things you
quite
did maybe
right.
when you
And
were
that is
governor
what
that
your audience will
really
do to
served
you
to
if
suppress
you're trying to fake it.
the votes of
can see that you're not
Democratic
being
voters?
yourself,
The
or
use
if
it
you're
or lose it
uncomfortable or
law, which you
confident.
pushed through, which
So,
says
the
if
first
you haven't
golden
voted
rule
in
I'm
2
gonna give
elections
you
in a row,
is
they take you
be
off the
yourself.
rolls. Cutting
Now,
down on
that
early
probably
voting.
sounds a bit
I mean, some of that
strange. You
stuff
might be
is
thinking, well, who else am I
what
gonna be?
Democrats are always
Well, I've worked
accusing
with hundreds of
Republicans of
TV
doing,
presenters who,
which is
when
the
they're
only
off
saying the
screen,
only way you can win
friendly,
elections
warm,
is
and
basically
relaxed.
by cutting down
But
the
you
number
put a
of
camera in
people
front of
voting.
them and they change. They
Well,
lose
Bill,
all that
first of all,
warmth and
we
easy
have
feeling.
we
They
have
become a
more
little bit
early days
formal
of
and
voting. It's
artificial.
easier to vote in
It's almost
Ohio
like
than about any
they're
other
talking to the
state.
vicar, or
And
they're back at school
secondly,
and they're
that
talking to
whole
the headmaster.
use it or lose it was
So,
something
what's
I
happening
didn't
here?
pass that. That was something
Well,
that was in
when
effect.
somebody is
But one of the
holding
things
back,
that I
it can be a
did do
defense
was tell the
mechanism.
legislature
If
that
we're
I was not
nervous or
going
unsure of the
to go
situation,
along
we
with
can
the
put up a
idea that
wall or a
people had to have a have a driver's license ID because I felt that would be very unfair and it would hurt people. So I'm satisfied with what I had to do. And in terms of that early voting, again, I think we have like 29 days of early voting. It's more than what they have in New York. So maybe people ought to catch up to us rather than we worrying about, you know, how many days we have. We've done a good job here with that.
Okay. Well, listen, I'm going to read you what the president said yesterday. Which I hate to keep being an I told you so on this show, but Donald Trump said the only way we're going to lose this election is if the election is rigged.
Everything
which
else
is basically
is just
saying,
you being
heads I
yourself.
win, tails you lose.
I think of it
And then
like
they
this.
asked Kelly McEnany about it,
Imagine
and she
you've just
said,
returned home
yeah,
from the trip of a
you know, they're in
lifetime.
the we'll see what
3
happens
months
mode,
traveling
which
the
is, of
world
course,
and seeing all the
not
best
the answer
places
you want to
and
hear
interesting
from a president
cultures.
about will you
And
accept
now
the
you're meeting your
results
best
of
friend
the
to
election.
tell them all
Donald
about
Trump
your
also said, we're
adventures.
going to
You'll be
win
happy
4
to
more
see
years,
them
and after
and
that, we'll go for
enthusiastic to
another
tell them
4.
about all the great stuff
Because
that
they
you've
spied
seen.
on my campaign,
But you may have
we should
also
get a
seen some
redo of
unpleasant
4
things.
years.
Perhaps
I mean, he's doing
poverty
my
in
act
certain
for me,
areas.
this guy.
You'd still talk with that
I
energy
still
and
think people
conviction.
are not
You'd still
taking
be on a
this
good day,
as seriously
but you'd be
as they
sensitive
should.
to the situation.
What do you say, and what should we do?
Yeah, Bill, my concern is this. So you have
start
a
learning
guy
body
out
language
here
very
already
early
setting
on.
it up,
From
saying,
the day
well,
we're
you know, I
born,
think
we
there's
look into a
we're going to be
human
ripped
face and we
off
start to
unless I
figure
win.
out what that
And the
smile
problem with
means.
it, the deep
Now, as we
problem
go
with
through
it,
life, we become
is
very good
if
at
you
it.
get like
How many
20
times
or
have you ever thought to
25% of the
yourself,
people in this
I
country that
don't
don't
believe
believe in the
a word that
legitimacy
man
of a
says?
presidential
Now,
election,
it's probably a
you have a
politician
real
that you've seen on
problem.
TV or something,
And
but
that's when I
the point
first
is this,
heard him talking
you're
about. That's
reading
when
their
through
body
what
language,
went through my
facial
mind. You
expressions,
can't have a
and
situation
tones,
where
and you're
the
picking up on
president
something
of the United
that
States,
just isn't
and just
quite
think about
right.
it.
And
There's
that
precedence
is
for
what
this. You
your
remember
audience
Richard
will do
Nixon
to
felt
you
that things
if
had
you're
not
trying
gone
to
the right
fake
way
it.
when he ran against
You can
Kennedy. He
see
thought
that
he
you're
had
not being
grounds of
yourself,
protest.
or
He didn't
if
do
you're
it.
not
Al
comfortable or
Gore,
confident.
you know, I know Al
So,
very
the
well.
first
Al,
golden rule
you know,
that I'm gonna
Al
give
was
you
able to
is
concede. He said,
be
look, for the good
yourself.
of the country,
Now,
I'm not going to
that
fight
probably
this.
sounds
So we
a
have
bit strange.
Republicans and
You might be
Democrats
thinking, well,
who
who else am I gonna be?
have put the country
Well, I've
first.
worked
And what
with
you see with
hundreds of
these
TV
comments,
presenters who,
to
when they're
me,
off screen, are friendly,
it's
warm,
beyond
and
deeply
relaxed.
troubling.
But
Because
you
if
put a
you get
camera
that
in
number
front
of
of them and
people
they
that don't
change.
believe in
They
the
lose all that
legitimacy of the
warmth
election,
and easygoing
where do we go
feeling,
from
and
there?
they become a little
So
bit
I just
formal
hope
and
it's going to be a
artificial.
sweeping victory,
It's
but I
almost
think
like
even with a
they're
sweeping
talking to the
victory,
vicar,
you're still going to
or
have
they're back
people
at
that
school
doubt
and
the
they're
outcome.
talking
But
to the
that's the mess
headmaster.
we're in, and that's why I
So,
spoke at the
what's happening
convention.
here?
Right.
Because the things
Well,
like
when
that
somebody
cannot
is
be
holding
tolerated.
back, it can
Yeah,
be
I still don't
defensive
hear
against
what we're actually going
If
to
we're
do.
nervous or
And
unsure of the
it's more than just,
situation,
I
we can put
think,
up a wall or a facade
people who don't
to
accept
protect
the
the
election.
vulnerable little
It's
us
that
inside.
both sides
It's
use
almost
this
like
word
we're thinking,
existential
if criticism comes,
about
it's
if the
okay,
other guy
because
wins,
it's not really me, it's an
America
act.
is over.
A good TV
When you have
presenter
two
doesn't
camps
do
like
this.
that
They're
who
confident
think
and brave
that
enough
it's the
to
end
let
of the
us see
country,
real
the end of
person
our
inside.
life as
And
we
in
know
doing
it, if
so,
the other side
people will
wins. Now, in
genuinely
what
warn
world
to
is
them
Joe
that
Biden
as
the
a
end of
general
America?
rule,
I don't
the
know.
you that works
But
well on
that's where they
camera is a
are.
confident,
Do you really
enthusiastic,
think there's going to be a
and
peaceful
passionate
transition of
and
power?
this is the only part of presenting that I would
Well,
ever
Bill,
call
I
a
don't want to
performance.
speculate that
Finding
things
that
could
energy
go
and enthusiasm,
negative there.
even
I don't
when
want
you're
to.
not
I
in the
don't want to
mood.
feed
You
that.
must be able
That'll
to
have to be
turn it
something
on.
you need to
But
talk
it's
about.
only the energy and
But
enthusiasm
I will
that you
tell
turn
you
on.
that that's another
Everything
reason
else
why I
is
spoke,
just you
because
being yourself.
the hatred
I think of
through
it like
clenched
this.
teeth doesn't
Imagine
now
you've just
exist just
returned
with
home from the
politicians.
trip of a
It's now
lifetime.
down into
3
families.
months
It's in
traveling the world
it's with
and seeing all the
neighbors. It's
best
with
places and
friends.
interesting cultures.
I mean,
And
I have
now
never
you're
seen a
meeting your
time,
best
and
friend
it's
to
been
tell
getting,
them
they're
all
getting,
about
now
your
it's been
adventures.
fed. You know, it's like putting
You'll be happy to
gasoline
see
on a
them.
fire,
And
where,
enthusiastic to
you
tell
know,
them
it
about
used
all
to
the
be the
great stuff
politicians
that
didn't
you've
like
seen.
one another. But now
But
when
you
you
may have
have
also seen some
families
unpleasant
being
things,
broken, people
perhaps
can't talk
poverty in
about
certain
this.
areas.
This is what
You'd
really
still
troubles
talk
me.
with
And
that
it's
energy
so
and
ridiculous
conviction.
because we're
You'd still be on a good
Americans.
day,
And
but you'd be sensitive
it's that
to the
everybody's,
situation.
they're in their own silos, it's tribal. And I wrote a book about this. In fact, we talked about it before.
We
It's
start
called
learning
It's
body
Up to
language
Us. If you
very
can't,
early on.
you
From the day
fix
we're born,
everything
we look
from the
into a
bottom
human
up, not
face
the
and we
top
start to
down. And when the
figure out
public
what
is
that
divided,
smile means.
you can't
Now, as
get
we go
anything
through life,
done.
we become very
And
good
that,
at it. How many times have you ever thought to yourself,
I'm so upset
I
about that
don't
because I
believe
see
a
it
word
every
that man
single
says.
day.
Now,
Well, listen, I
it's
commend
probably a
you for
politician that you've
speaking at
seen
this
on TV or
convention and
something,
endorsing
but the
Biden. I
point
think
is
that
this,
was a really
you're
great thing you
reading their
did.
body language,
And for
facial
those people who are hostile
expressions,
to you,
and
you say
tones,
you're getting a
and
lot
you're
of heat.
picking up on something
You know, I know that
just isn't
sometimes
quite
comes from the
right.
left, and I
that
just
is
want to
what
say to
your
those
audience will
people,
do to
look,
you if
this country, you're always going to be sharing it with some people, a lot of people, who just don't see the world the way you do. And you have to accept that. It seems like we're in this place where we want to own each other and obliterate each other. No one wants to compromise, and that's something that you and Joe Biden have in common. You're two guys who accept that people have differences. You can't own them. You have to work with them. We have to coexist.
They lose all that warmth and easygoing feeling, and they become a little bit formal and artificial. It's almost like they're talking to the vicar, or they're back at school and they're talking